Welcome to Science Store online classes.
Don't forget to like our video and subscribe our YouTube channel for all the updates.
Welcome to all my dear students. Today I am taking biology class. Under that we are studying the chapter biological classification. Last class we studied about the mycota kingdom. Under that we mycota or fungi kingdom. Under that we have studied about the Phycomycetes. Phycomycetes. So, the fungus which comes under, which is having a algal body, the fungus which shows the algal body which come under Phycomycetes, they usually grow in aquatic as well as grow as a saprophytic fungus, and some of them are obligate parasites. I have told what is obligate parasites, which live in another organism. In the absence of that particular organism, the fungus will not able to live independently. That type of association we call it as obligate parasites. And we have studied about the different mode of reproduction. Here usually sexual mode of reproduction, vegetative reproduction we can see fragmentation, and asexual mode of reproduction we can see by the production of zoospores and aplanospores. Even sporangiospores also produced, and these spores are produced by endogenous process, means endogenous process, endogenously. Endogenously inside the sporangium. They grow endogenously inside the sporangium. I will explain. The hyphae will produce a specialized structure. We will call it as sporangiophore. The stalk which bears the sporangium, we will call it as sporangiophore. Sporangio refers to the spore bearing structure. Phore means the stalk-like structure. The stalk-like structure we will call it as phore, sporangiophore. Okay, which at the tip it bears a spherical structure. We will call it as sporangium. And inside this sporangium you can see the production of spores. Inside this we can see the production of spores, and the spore produced inside the sporangium, this condition we will call it as endogenous. The spores produced inside the sporangium, this process we will call it as endogenous production of spores. Okay, understood? Endogenous andre sporangium ಒಳಗೆ spores growth ಅಥವಾ spores ಇದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ endogenous development ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. If they are present outside the sporangium, the spores are attached outside the sporangium, that will call it as exogenous, that you are going to study while studying the Ascomycetes. Okay, here these are sexual mode of reproduction takes place by the fusion of two different strain gametes. The gametes from two different strain hyphae, ಎರಡು different strain hyphae say gametes ಅನ್ನು produce ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. That gamete will fuse and form a reproductive structure, that is zygote. Zygote later undergo meiotic division and produces the spores. From that spores new mycelium will develop. And few examples for Phycomycetes is rhizopus, commonly seen in bread mold. This is also commonly called as bread mold. Then mucor. Mucor is also seen in a bread. If you keep a food material, mucor also develop on the surface. Rhizopus, mucor. These are the two examples for the fungus comes under the Phycomycetes. Some are parasitic in nature. Some of the fungus are parasitic in nature. Okay. Rhizopus and mucus are the common example. Rhizopus and mucor are example. These are the saprophytic fungus. One more, albugo, which is a parasitic fungus which forms a white spots on mustard plant. Mustard plant, white spots will be seen. That is nothing but the growth of this albugo, which comes under Phycomycetes, and a few fungus are parasitic in nature, so they cause diseases in animals as well as in plants. Okay, next we will move to the next division, that is Ascomycetes, which is commonly called as sac fungi, which is commonly called as sac fungi, which produces a sac-like structure. The mycelium, the hyphae will be same in almost all the organism, but they produce specialized structure, fruiting bodies that is just like cup-like structure, sac-like structure. So it is commonly called as sac fungi. We can see multicellular fungus, example penicillium. This is multicellular in nature, and few are unicellular, except yeast, which is a unicellular in nature, that is Saccharomyces. The scientific name of yeast is Saccharomyces cerevisius. That is not required. Yeast is a unicellular Ascomycetes, which usually reproduce by the process of cell division, simple cell division. And the plant body, the fungal body is multicellular. So I have told multicellular, then cenocytic, they are septate, multinucleated and septate. They are septate in nature and they are branched. The hyphae show well defined branching, but in case of Phycomycetes, the plant body is cenocytic. Here in Phycomycetes, it is cenocytic and aseptate. Here this Phycomycetes is cenocytic and aseptate in nature, but here you can see septa and well defined branching in Ascomycetes. Here this usually reproduce, these usually grow as a saprophyte, decomposer, parasites, and few are parasitic. Here they may be saprophytic, decomposer, parasitic and coprophilous. Some are coprophilous, means which grow on animal dung. Few Ascomycetes group which grow well on the animal dung, like cow dung and animal waste. They grow well in that condition, that type of growth we'll call it as coprophilous, very important, which grow on animal dungs. Okay, the plant body is septate and branch, and they reproduce by asexual means. Asexual, they grow, usually show asexual mode of reproduction by producing spores called conidiospores or conidia. They reproduce, asexually reproduce by conidiospores or conidia. These conidia are developed exogenously. Here the conidia is developed exogenously, like exogenous means here the hypha will develop a specialized branching. Special branching will be developed from the main hyphae. This will call it as conidiophore. This will call it as conidiophore, which give rise to a specialized structure, head-like structure, and all the conidia will develop from on the surface of the conidiophore. So this type of development of spores is called as exogenous. The spores develop on the surface. Here the spores develop on the surface. So development is exogenous. Here spore developed inside the special cavity or special structure. That's why it is called as endogenous development. This is exogenous. Each spore is conidiospore. Example for this type of structure you can see in Aspergillus. You can see this type of structure in Aspergillus and this in Rhizopus. Understood? Okay. And they undergo sexual mode of reproduction by fusing two gametes. They undergo sexual mode of reproduction by fusing two gametes, and that gamete undergo meiotic division and produces a specialized structure called they divide and produces ascospore in a specialized structure called asci or ascus. Here the spores are developed endogenously inside the ascus. Spores are present inside the ascus, and these ascus aggregate and form a special structure called ascocarp. Special structure called ascocarp. Special structure called ascocarp, and this ascocarp contain many asci or ascus, and inside this ascus you can see the development of spores. I will draw the structure. So if you take one example, that a cup fungi, this is not there in your book. This is an structure of Pizziza which grow on the surface of cow dung. Cow dung is dried cow dung idre, you can find the cup like structure somewhat like this. Cup like structure idre you can find. These are nothing but Pizziza. On this inner surface you can see many asci. Each asci is called as ascus, singular. If you enlarge this ascus, this asci, you can find like this structure, and inside this you can see the arrangement of spores. These are nothing but the ascospores. These are nothing but ascospores. Here the ascospore development is endogenous, which is situated inside the ascus, and this ascus grouped together form a specialized structure called ascocarp. This is called ascocarp. The fungal body is present here. Highly intertwined mass. This is actually the part of the main part of the fungus. These structures are there, no? These are the fruiting bodies. ನಾವು ಹೇಗೆ umbrella shaped structure ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕಾಣ್ತೇವೆ. These are fruiting body. ಅದು ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಷಲೈಸ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್. ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ ಅದರ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಅಥವಾ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ ದ ಫಂಗಲ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೇಟಮ್ ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದು ಅದು ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳೀತದೆ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ವೈಟ್ ಕಾಟನಿ ಥ್ರೆಡ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ that is the actual body of the fungus. These are the fruiting bodies. This is not the actual part of the fungus. It is meant for the production of spores. Okay, understood? Okay, so here the ascocarp contain asci and or ascus. Okay, and these ascus contain ascospores. These are the reproduction, sexual mode of reproduction. So by the sexual reproduction during the fusion of gamete, a special structure will be developed, that is ascus. Ascus will give rise to asci. Asci will undergo meiotic division and produces ascospores. Understood? These are the sexual mode of reproduction. Next, few examples for this Ascomycetes is Aspergillus, Claviceps. In Aspergillus you can find a conidia. This structure you can see, main fruiting body. Okay, here Claviceps you can see like this structure. Okay, Claviceps purpurea which cause diseases, ergot disease anna cause ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. Claviceps will cause diseases in plants, so it produces like this structure. ಈ ತರ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. So inside that you can see this sac like structure. This is nothing but the Basidiomycetes. Okay, sorry, this is nothing but the Ascocarp. Inside this you can see the presence of spores. Inside this you can see the presence of spores. And one more example is neurospores. Neurospores, these also produces a sac-like structure. There are sac-like structure and produce ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. Inside that you can see the presence of spores. ಹೀಗೆ ಆಸೆಯನ್ನು ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ದ ಪ್ರೆಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ನ್ಯೂರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಬಯೋಕೆಮಿಕಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಜೆನೆಟಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ಇದು ಜೆನೆಟಿಕ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿಗೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದರೆ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ವೆರಿ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಸ್ಪ್ಯಾನ್ ಬೇಗ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಶೋ ಸಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಸಿಮಿಲರ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಲೈಕ್ ದಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ಸ್. ಕೆಲವು ಬಯೋಕೆಮಿಕಲ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಸ್ ವೆಲ್ ಆಸ್ ಫ್ಯೂ metabolic reaction is similar in higher organisms. So this is used in genetics to study the patterns, different patterns. Andre iga rhythms ಅಂದರೆ biological clocks ಅಂದರೆ ಎಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. If you wake up in a correct 8 o'clock always, if you practice that for 2 to 3 days, you will wake up at 8 o'clock only. 8 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ನೀವು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀರಿ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಬಯೋಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ಇನ್ ಅನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ ಆಸ್ ವೆಲ್ ಆಸ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ಸ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆ ಸ್ಟಡಿಗೆ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯಾಡಿಕ್ ರಿದಮ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ನ್ಯೂರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ವೈ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ this neurospora is used because this is having a short lifespan, so it is very easy to study. If you take animals, it is having a long life cycle, so it is difficult to maintain the perfect condition to study. So if we use this neurospora, it requires short lifespan, and within a short period we can study the genetics ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಬೇಗ ನಾವು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇರುವ ಕಾರಣ ಹೈಯರ್ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಅದರ ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ನಾಟ್ study well. Okay, these are the 3 different examples for Ascomycetes. Next we'll move to the one more type, that is Basidiomycetes. Basidiomycetes. Here usually it grow as a saprophytic as well as parasitic condition. Usually they grow, we can see this in a damp condition, swampy areas, damp soil. Logs, on the logs or tree stamps, means tree pieces, the bark pieces will be there, no stem pieces on the surface of that small pieces, tree pieces alli you can see the development of these fungus. Usually damp soil alli logs in tree trunks, logs alli, then tree stamps alli we can find the development of Basidiomycetes. Usually this is multicellular and branched. They are, the hyphae is highly branched and multicellular, and they are septate. The hyphae is septate. Okay, you can see septate condition in before Ascomycetes. We can after Ascomycetes all the fungus show multicellular, branched and septate condition. Okay, remember. Next, okay, usually they grow as a saprophyte, which means which grow on a dead and decaying matter, and few are parasitic, which cause diseases in other organism like Puccinia, which cause diseases in rust diseases in wheat, and also some cause smut disease. Some of the fungus called smut diseases in the cereal plants. Okay, next, it is also undergo vegetative mode of reproduction. You can see vegetative mode of reproduction. Vegetative reproduction will be seen, that is mainly by fragmentation or some other type of vegetative reproduction will be seen. But here this Basidiomycetes will lack asexual mode of reproduction. They do not show asexual mode of reproduction. No asexual no asexual reproduction is seen in Basidiomycetes. Basidiomycetes alli asexual reproduction irudilla, and we can see the sexual mode of reproduction. Here we can see the sexual mode of reproduction. Okay, we'll study how the sexual mode of reproduction are quite complicated to understand. So I will draw and explain. Okay, first from the Basidiospores will be developed by sexual mode of reproduction that germinate. So first we'll take Basidiospores. It will germinate and produces mycelium. Will germinate and produces mycelium, that is long mycelium will be produced, and they are Cenocytic haploid. These myceliums are haploid in condition. I have told haploid andre single set of chromosome anna hondirtade. So this Basidiospores this is also haploid in condition. This is also haploid in nature. Next, this will undergo some sexual mode of reproduction wherein you can see the fusion of two gametes. This will two opposite strain hyphae will come in contact, will produces the spores. Okay, so that will join and form a zygote. Okay, it will form a zygote like structure. Here the plasmogamy takes place. Here the plasmogamy takes place during the fusion. What happens? Only plasmogamy takes place. Andre plasmogamy andre explain madidane the fusion of protoplast, but here this nucleus will not fuse. Here the nucleus will not fuse, so they show dikaryotic phase. They show dikaryotic phase, and this dikaryotic phase undergo division and produces a hyphae. Each cell contain two nucleus. They undergo division and produce hyphae, which is diploid in condition, not diploid, dikaryotic in nature. Later this will produce as a specialized fruiting body called basidiocarp. It produces a specialized fruiting body called basidiocarp. So inside this you can see gill like structure alva, gill like structure produce agtade. If you see in any mushroom, you can see the gills on the lower side alli gills iruttade, and this gill like structure, if you take a cross section tegdaga hege kantade, can see the gill, right? This is a gill like structure. So this bear basidium. Cross section ತೆಗೆದಾಗ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ basidium ಕಾಣಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಗ್ತದೆ. So this basidium contain two dikaryotic phase. Basidium contains, this is nothing but the basidium. So basidium undergo fusion. So the two dikaryotic cell present. Okay, two dikaryotic cell present in each basidium, and singular is basidium, plural many these structures, sac like structure present, we'll call it as basidia. Okay, this each structure will call it as basidium. Okay, here what happens, these two opposite strain nucleus will fuse. It will fuse. So it form, now it is in diploid condition. Illi tanka adu fuse ಆಗಿರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ nucleus. In basidium stage alli adu fuse agi diploid condition ಗೆ ಬರ್ತದೆ. So diploid condition later undergo meiotic division. Meiotic division ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Meiotic division. So meiotic division undertakes place in a cell. So in each meiotic division 4 daughter cells are produced. Each meiotic division alli 4 daughter cells produce ಆಗ್ತದೆ, and they undergo reduction division. ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೇನೆ reduction division ಅಂದ್ರೆ the chromosome number, each daughter cell will get half the number of chromosome from that of parents. ಈಗ parents ಅಲ್ಲಿ 2 set chromosome ಇದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು set ಒಂದು daughter cell ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು set ಇನ್ನೊಂದು daughter cell ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ. Again it will divide and produce 4 daughter cells. In each meiotic division there is a production of 4 basidiospores, and each basidiospore undergo the same cycle, will continue. Understood? First basidiospore will germinate into hyphae, normal hyphae, because this basidiospores are haploid in nature. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ haploid condition ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಇದು haploid ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ, ಇದು haploid condition ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತದೆ. Haploid condition ಅಲ್ಲಿ hyphae produce ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. Hyphae later undergo sexual mode of reproduction. They fuse, the gametes produced in hyphae will fuse and produces a zygote, which only undertake the plasmogamy ಮಾತ್ರ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. So that phase will call it as dikaryotic phase. That dikaryotic phase will continue, produces this dikaryotic zygote will undergo hyphae. They divide and forms a hyphae, and that hyphae will give rise to a fruiting body, that will call it as basidiocarp. It will form a specialized fruiting body called basidiocarp. From inside the basidiocarp you can see the gill like structure or any sections you can see, and each gill contain many basidia, and each basidium which is containing two nucleus ಇರ್ತದೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. They undergo fusion and form a diploid structure, and this diploid basidium undergo meiotic division and produce four daughter cells, that is 4 basidiospores. Again that will divide, mitotic division ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Again it will produce large number of spores, and these spores again develop into a mycelium. So this life cycle continues in Basidiomycetes. Is a life cycle of Basidiomycetes. It is given in your book, which is not understood. By this drawing you can easily understand the concept. So by this process they undergo sexual mode of reproduction, and few example for Basidiomycetes is penicillium. So this is very important. Most of the Basidiomycetes are used as you have seen common mushroom, puffballs. These are the good example for Basidiomycetes. Puffballs, even mushrooms, and bracket fungi. You can see most of the mushrooms, common edible as well as mushrooms, puffballs. Mushroom puffballs, and these are commonly seen mushroom which comes under Basidiomycetes, and usually some of the Basidiomycetes will cause diseases like smut and rust on the on plants. And few example, penicillium, which is very useful for the synthesis of important antibiotic called penicillin. Next, ustilago. Penicillium, ustilago, these are the few examples of the fungi. And also one more important fungus which is present in Ascomycetes, that is morels and truffles. Okay, I forgot to tell about that. Morels and truffles, which is a type of Ascomycetes, which is used as considered as a delicacies. Delicacies andre the any organism or any material used to enhance the taste, like spices ಯಾಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ ನಾವು? It enhances the taste. Same way these morels and truffles used as a delicacies in food preparation ಅಲ್ಲಿ delicacies ಆಗಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Here we commonly in India we don't use morels and truffles. In Japan and China they use more mushrooms and algae ಮತ್ತೆ mushroom ಅನ್ನು ಅವರು ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. You can see different types of mushroom they use, as well as they also use different kinds of algae in their food diet ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ mushrooms ಮತ್ತೆ that fungus ಮತ್ತೆ fungi ಮತ್ತೆ algae ಅನ್ನು ಪ್ರಿಫರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. We Indians will prefer the plant origin materials. So morels and truffles, they are dried and used in food preparations. Okay, so here we'll come to the Basidiomycetes. We studied that different example, penicillium, ustilago are the examples for this ustilago will cause smut disease in cereals ಅಲ್ಲಿ smut disease ಅನ್ನು cause ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. Penicillium usually grow on citrus fruit ಅಲ್ಲಿ usually ಇದು grow ಆಗ್ತದೆ. So okay, next we'll move to the one more topic, one more division, that is, this penicillium will not come under this Basidiomycetes. It comes under Ascomycetes, ustilago, agaricus, which is a common mushrooms. All the edible mushroom will come under this agaricus group, and ustilago, which cause smut disease in cereals, and Puccinia which cause rust disease in wheat. These are the different examples for Basidiomycetes group. Okay, understood? Here usually in these fungus we cannot see the development of sex organs. As we see in higher plants, here we cannot see the development of sex organs. Even only the well developed fruiting body we can see. We cannot see the sex organs. So only the different hyphae, different strain of hyphae, genetically they are similar, but they show different morphology. So that hyphae will fuse and form a zygotic structure that later gave rise to a specialized fruiting body. Only special fruiting body anna navilli kaanteve. Well developed sexual organs or reproductive structure ee fungus alli develop agudilla. So that's why which comes before the plant kingdom or higher organism bartadalla, plant and animal, adra munche fungus bartade, but they show well defined morphological character than our lower organism. Protista moneraಕ್ಕೆ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಇದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅಡ್ವಾನ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಮೋಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾರ್ಫಾಲಜಿಕಲ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಅಥವಾ ಫಿಸಿಯೋಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಅನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ದೇ ಕೆಪ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ದ ಪ್ರೊಟಿಸ್ಟ್, ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಟು ಕಿಂಗ್ಡಮ್. ಆ ಎರಡು ಕಿಂಗ್ಡಮ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಈ ಕಿಂಗ್ಡಮ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗೋ ಟು ದ ಒನ್ ಮೋರ್ ಡಿವಿಷನ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಡ್ಯೂಟೆರೋಮೈಸಿಟೀಸ್. Most of the agaricus like mushrooms, that button mushroom, ಮತ್ತು ಬ್ರಾಕೆಟ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಮಾಯ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಮಶ್ರೂಮ್ ಮತ್ತು ಕಲ್ಲಣಬೆ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಎಡಿಬಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಸೊ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ Basidiomycetes. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಮೂವ್ ಟು ದ this Deuteromycetes usually called as imperfect we call this as a imperfect fungi. Why? Because this Deuteromycetes will not show well defined sexual mode of reproduction. Andre sexual mode of reproduction is not defined in Deuteromycetes type of fungus. Deuteromycetes type of fungus alli sexual mode of reproduction anna iduvarege identify madlilla. So they show advanced morphological condition, but they do not show sexual mode of reproduction. So they grouped into a that's why they grouped into a separate groups. If the their sexual mode of reproduction will be identified, it may comes under Ascomycetes or Basidiomycetes. Till now this sexual mode of reproduction is not identified in Deuteromycetes, so it is grouped in a separate divisions. They undertake vegetative as well as asexual mode of reproduction, but they do not show well advanced sexual mode of reproduction, but their morphological plant body is well defined, well developed. They produce asexual spores called conidiospores, which is produced on a specialized structure called conidiophore. Conidiophore and the special structure develop ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ you can find the development of conidiospores. This is one of the important asexual spores produced in Deuteromycetes, and there is no sexual mode of reproduction identified till now. Okay, and they usually grow in all the moist condition, then they usually grow as saprophytic fungus, and also some act as a decomposers, and few will act as a parasitic organism. Few Deuteromycetes will act as a parasitic fungus, and few example for this is Fusarium, usually cause diseases in plants. Next, Coletotrichum, Trichoderma. Trichoderma, it is a special type of fungus which cause diseases, ringworm disease anna cause ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. I have told few fungus will cause diseases in animals like human beings ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಹ ಅದು disease ಅನ್ನು cause ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. The main trichoderma which cause ringworm diseases in ringworm skin diseases in human beings ಅಲ್ಲಿ skin that ringworm disease ಅನ್ನು cause ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. So next we'll move to this is the end of the mycota kingdom ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಎಂಡ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Deuteromycetes ಅಷ್ಟು they are well defined organ system ಅನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸ್ತದೆ, but their sexual mode of reproduction is not defined till now. So they grouped into a separate class. They grouped in a separate class. If the perfect sexual mode of reproduction may be identified in future days, it may come either in Ascomycetes or Basidiomycetes. Okay, next we'll move to the next important kingdom, that is Plantae, which include all the photosynthetic organism, that is plant. Photosynthetic organism will come under that, autotrophic organism will come under the kingdom Plantae. Okay, here the Plantae is autotrophic in nature, well defined eukaryotic cell with well defined chloroplast. We can say the eukaryotic advanced type of eukaryotic cell with well defined chloroplast. This chloroplast is very important for the photosynthesis, for the process of photosynthesis. This chloroplast play very important role. And also they have well defined cell wall with cellulose material. All the plant cells which contain a well defined cell wall which is made up of cellulose content. In fungus we have seen chitin and polysaccharide. Chitin and polysaccharide as a cell wall material. Cell wall material of fungi may usually chitin and polysaccharide. These are the important cell wall materials in fungi. They lack cellulose. This Plantae contains a well known cell wall with the cellulose content. They also have well defined nucleus and all the organelle systems are well developed in Plantae, and few of them are partial heterotrophic nature. Few of the plant which show partial heterotrophic nature. For example, insectivorous plant, insectivorous plant like Nepenthes and Venus trap plant, okay, and Drosera. These are the few example for the insectivorous plant, that is Nepenthes, Venus trap plant, then Drosera. These are the few example for insectivorous plant. They partially dependent on the other organism for the nitrogen source. Yake the insectivorous plant andre they depend on the other organism like insect for their nitrogen source. Nitrogen source agi source ಗಾಗಿ ಅದು ಬೇರೆ organism insect ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತದೆ. They trap the insect and they'll get the nitrogen source. So they are show partial heterotrophic nature. So Next we'll move. Some of them are parasitic in nature. Some of them are parasitic in nature. For example, Cuscuta. Cuscuta, yellow colored wiry like only stem, yellow colored only stem containing structure will be seen on the surface of the plant alva. ಕೆಲವು plant herbaceous plant ಅಥವಾ shrub plant ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು yellow color wiry ತರದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. These are nothing but Cuscuta. Yellow color ಇರ್ತದೆ. They are not green in color. That's why they are not photosynthetic, non-photosynthetic in nature. They depend on the other organism, other plant, mainly on other plant for the nutrition. They develop ಇದು plant ಆದರೆ they develop thick root system inside the plant. They form a thick root system. ಈ ಥರ develop ಆಗಿ forms only you cannot see the leaf in this structure. Leaf structure ಇರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. They only produces a long wiry stem, slender stem like structure. They are branched and at the tip they may contain flowers. At the tip you can see the flowering. You can see commonly in on the surface of the other plants. Tip alli flower anna develop ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. They do not have any leaves. So these type of organism which live as a parasitic in other plants, on other plants. Okay, and these are the important features. Usually the plant undergo photosynthesis by the help of chloroplast, chlorophyll pigment, by using sunlight, water and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They synthesize their own food. So they are chief producer in an environment. We are going to study in detail in later classes. One entire chapter plant kingdom is given. Under that we are studying in details, and they have two phases in their life cycle. They show two phases, that is sporophytic phase and gametophytic phase. That we are going to study in details. So these after sporophytic, gametophytic phase may come. After gametophytic phase they show sporophytic phase. So they alters, these two phase alters in a plant kingdom. So alteration between these two phases will show the alteration of generation, alteration in generation in plants, that you are going to study. Because of that you can see different life cycle. Because of this alteration of generation you can see the different types of life cycle that you are going to study in detail. So this is about the plant kingdom. Okay, we'll continue with the animal kingdom and some more organism, virus, viroids, prions and lichens in next class. So thank you all my dear students.
Don't forget to like our video and subscribe our YouTube channel for all the updates.